The gold Bitcoin comparison is a straw man. It doesn't mean anything. That's typical Wall Street research, which I pretty much ignore. I look at good research, but I don't put Wall Street in that category. Here's the thing: Bitcoin and gold are both going up because of concerns of because of loss of confidence in the dollar. So I don't see a Bitcoin gold trade-off. I mean, first of all, the numbers don't add up. The total market cap. I understand that Bitcoin, in percentage terms, it's had a great run in 2020. You know, it's gone from about $9,000 to $20,000. That's a 100% increase. I get that, but the entire market cap of Bitcoin, if you took all the Bitcoins in the world times $20,000, it's not that much. It's certainly tiny compared to gold, and gold is tiny compared to the foreign exchange market. So there's no. It's not like a zero-sum game and people are getting out of gold and they're going into Bitcoin. That's not happening. What is happening is that people are getting into gold and into Bitcoin at the same time because they want to get out of the dollar. And my last book, Aftermath, came out in July 2019. If you look at pages 280 to 295 in that book, I talk about a pandemic and a couple other events. And I say there's a 100% chance that one of them will happen in the next 3 years, and pandemic is on the list. And then I said that will lead to social disorder, riots in the streets, and armed forces, whether it's militias or U.S. National Guard in the streets. So nothing happened in 2020 that you weren't warned about in 2019 in my last book. In my new book, it's the same thing. I just take the story forward. So we're in a depression. Depression does not mean continuous declining GDP. It means depressed growth. We'll get growth, but it will be below trend, even worse than the 2009 to 2019 expansion, maybe growth of 1.7%. But right now, right this minute, we're going into a second recession. Recessions are technically defined 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. So we had a recession from February to July 2020. We came out of that recession because we had very strong growth in the third quarter. But now we're going back into a second recession, the first back-to-back recession since 1980 and 1981. And the reason is obvious, which is we're going back into lockdowns. There's another coronavirus outbreak. By fatalities and daily case reports, it's worse than March and April. If you say, well, look back at March and April, how horrible it was. Well, it's worse than that right now. It's the interesting thing about the book. It'll be the first book, and so far the only book, that wrestles with the pandemic and the economic outlook. Doctors are going to write books about the pandemic. Economists will eventually get around to writing books about the economic state of affairs, although economists tend to prefer papers to books. But this book tackles both head on and draws the linkages between them. And the main linkage, here's the pandemic, here's the depression. What's the link between the two of them? The answer is it's the lockdown. Lockdowns don't work. They're unnecessary. There are things you can do. There are better things you can do that are more effective and less expensive, but that's not what the politicians want. But we're in a new lockdown right now, so you're going to get a new recession. This is one of the easiest forecasts I've ever done. First quarter of 2021, you're going to have a recession. These stocks are going to back off. Don't worry about inflation. You should be more concerned about deflation, which is coming. And gold will do very well in that environment because of the political and economic uncertainty. And also, we're going to get declining interest rates. So lower interest rates is a tailwind for gold. Political uncertainty is a tailwind for gold. So gold should do very well starting now going into 2021.
Before we continue, help us by smashing that YouTube like button and subscribe now to this channel. This shows the algorithm that you value the information, and it helps us spread this message. Sharing is caring. Please like and subscribe now. Thank you. And now, let's continue.
Worst thing you can do in any asset class is go all in on anything. Diversification is the key. Most people don't understand diversification. They think if they own 30 stocks in 10 sectors, they're diversified. And I say, no, you're not. You've got one asset class, okay, and they're highly correlated. So I wouldn't get all out of equity. I would lighten up on equities. I would increase my allocation to cash because cash reduces volatility in your portfolio. And I would absolutely have 10% of investable assets in gold, silver, or gold mining shares. Now, some people say, well, Jim, if that's the way you feel, why not go all in? Why not 50%? You know, but that's up to you. I don't recommend those kind of high percentages. You don't need them. If I'm right about the price of gold going to $10,000 to $15,000 an ounce in the coming years, 10% allocation is going to do just fine. That's going to save your portfolio.
Of your book, blending and the economic with the medical aspect.
Right.
I just wanted to take one quote where you say the destruction of over 4 trillion in asset value and the loss of 2 trillion in economic output was the cost of the lockdown. The doctors exceeded their authority and the politicians failed to stop them.
Correct. That's a pretty good assessment. Because you got guys like Anthony Fauci. He's the head of immunology of the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, and he's just like a near 80-year-old bureaucrat, swamp creature who's been around forever. He's held out as this prominent immunologist. He's not that good. There are prominent immunologists. You can find them at Rockefeller University or Stanford or elsewhere, but not in the U.S. government. So he's a guy who said, "Don't wear masks," and he said, "Wear masks," and he said, "We'll get through this. Oh, it's really bad." So he's just a bureaucrat. And he likes to say, well, we don't determine economic policy. We're just doctors. We're just giving our advice. That's not true. They took over the economy. Now, I fault President Trump for allowing that. Trump did a lot of things right, but that was one of the big things he did wrong. He put the doctors in charge of the economy, and doctors complain, and I'm going to get this criticism on my book. I can see it coming. Well, hey, Jim, you're not an immunologist. What do you know about medicine? Well, I turn around to the immunologist and say, what do you know about the economy? The answer is nothing. The old saying, Danielle, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you're an immunologist, everything looks like a lockdown. No one, actually Melinda Gates came out and said this, another, bubble creatures like, living in her elite bubble and completely out of touch with the real world. She said, well, when we said this lockdown thing, we didn't really quite think through the impact on the economy. I was like, well, duh, you lock down the economy, you're going to get 60 million claims for unemployment, which is what we've got. But the question is there something you could have done that would have been as effective at a much lower cost? And the answer is yes. The simplest, washing hands, wearing a mask, social distancing, and maybe canceling big crowd events, like football games or whatever. If you just did that, you would have had the same effect, same benefit of a lockdown at a much, much lower cost. We didn't have to shut down bars, restaurants, salons, dry cleaners. That's 50% of the economy. It's 45% of jobs. We've destroyed the economy for no good reason because, every other seat in the hair salon and wear a mask, that works fine. You don't have to close the place. But what you had were elites, rich elites and government bureaucrats out of touch with everyday Americans. And I dare say, same thing in Canada with your prime minister up there, who, they were on effect. They've got places to go. They can work from home. They've got plenty of money. They're not worried about job layoffs, least of all government bureaucrats, but they crushed everyone else for no good reason. And that's all covered in the book.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active and see you on the other side.